I mean, he's...
I do not like what they did.
Yeah, we're good?
Maybe I can do my whole
Okay.
entire thing.
Hello. Thank you for coming out this early in the morning. We are still waking up. My name is Cheryl Bradshaw. I am a mainstream mystery, thriller, suspense writer. I founded the group Indie Writers Unite on Facebook. It was the very first author group on Facebook way back in the day, 2011, I think, something around there. I've published about 50 books. I'm also the author of Mastering Your Mystery.
All right. My name is RJ Patterson, and I write mostly action-adventure thrillers, but I have written a mystery thriller series that would be similar to Cozy's, but not quite the same. Just a very low body count of one person. Most of mine, there's piles of bodies. I started writing in 2011, and I now have 67 books. And
show off.
yeah.
Show off.
Anyway, that's me.
Hi. Am I on?
No.
I'm not on. Okay, let's see.
Negatory.
Negatory, she says. Okay, I'm on now, right? Okay, I am Diane Capri. I write mystery, thriller, suspense. I've been writing forever. And I've been indie since 2011 mostly. I'm kind of hybrid. I have some traditional books still. I started out with writing what was called Cosy at the time. Now we would call it traditional mystery. And then I mostly sort of transitioned into writing thriller, and then I have one 4-book Cosy series. So I have something sort of all the way across the map for everybody here. I've also written some nonfiction books, and I wrote a little book of crime puzzles years ago, which was a very interesting experiment. If we have time later today, I'll tell you about that. I think I have 50-something titles. I really haven't added them up lately. It makes me feel tired.
Okay, so we kind of wanted to gauge the room and kind of cater to that when we're talking. So just show of hands, we wanted to know how many of you have published at least one novel in mystery, thriller, suspense genres. Just mainstream, not cozy. Okay, that's what we need to know. Okay, and how many have published 5 or more? Okay, and then how many of you write just, you would say you're mostly strictly cozy or a subgenre of like that? Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so when we were preparing to speak to you guys today, what I did is I went on the 20Books Cozy and Mystery Facebook page. If you guys aren't on that, you should be, and asked what did you guys want us to talk about. And I probably didn't need to do that because it was almost all like how to sell more books, how to be seen in a flooded market. So we're in a crowded market. So that is what we're going to start off by, just kind of talking about how we feel about that. And then I wanted to leave a lot of time for Q&A, just so that we could answer what you really want to know. We'll get to that pretty fast. So, how to market in a crowded market? Go.
Okay. All right. Well, there are so many different things that you can do, and people will tell you, do this, do that, 100 different things. As opposed to just necessarily starting with, how do I stand out in a crowded market? I would think a better, your first thing that you want to do would be to gather as many readers as you can through, and we'll talk about reader magnets in a little bit later on, but trying to do that to help you, build your base so that you can write. I think for me, that was my biggest challenge when I first started. There were, just like any time you start, there's always hundreds of great authors already out there, and you wonder, why would anybody pick up your books? What makes it different? And honestly, probably the best advice I got, some people told me, is don't worry about that. People just want to read these types of books. Don't worry about trying to stand out. Actually, try to blend in a lot of ways. Don't try to be so unique that, the book is either so weird and people are like, what is this? Like I had a friend one time who wrote, he wrote in kind of traditional thriller genre, And the first book I read in the series was great, and then the second book, people are, transporting, between countries in tubes that were like, I don't know, like these suction tubes between countries under the ocean, and it was like, what? And people got lost, because it was like, where did that series go and what happened? I thought I was reading this. So that's one thing I would say about that. But the other thing is, don't, as far as like your story goes, look, if you want to market, look for something that's unique about your story, that you can use to present to different media outlets or, blog, Facebook groups or whatever, reader groups that would be interested in what you're writing about. So for example, one time I wrote a novel about a NASCAR driver. It was a mystery about a NASCAR driver who died on the course, and it looked like an accident, and it actually wasn't. It was sabotage. And part of my research for it is I went around to NASCAR at an actual race, and I interviewed people and asked them, if you were going to kill your driver, how would you do it? I can tell you which people I would want to be my crew and which people I would not want to be my crew. There were some that were very anxious and eager to answer that question. But anyway, it was very helpful for me, like when I was in that world and I started meeting people. And what I realized is, like, there were a lot of readers that I met there. I thought I was there to kind of get research, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of people that like this. So what I did when I got done is I found, that week I had met somebody that ran a Sirius XM radio show for NASCAR fans, and I talked to her, and she was like, oh, I'd love to have you on the show. So I was able to reach fans, that might be interested, that were readers about something. So look for an affinity group. I've done this with soccer. I've been on a MLS podcast, talking about soccer, and I killed a soccer player off one time. I had a basketball player that I killed off, and I had Slam Magazine. I had them interview me and write about the story. So there's anything like that you're doing, whether it's, maybe you have, like, and if you're doing cozies and you might have something to do with pets, look for pet, like animal lover groups or something like that might be interested in your books, because readers are everywhere, and you can find them in maybe unique places that you're not traditionally thinking about, just as you're, looking at your story. Not necessarily my story is so different and unique, but where are the readers out that would like this story? So.
Diane.
Okay. All right, let's see. How to sell in a crowded market?
Yeah.
Okay. So absolutely our market's very crowded. Okay, we know that. All the markets are crowded. So, I don't know what market you could go into as a writer that wouldn't be crowded. So looking for a market that's not crowded, it probably means nobody reads it, okay? I mean, seriously, I have people come, ask me all the time, I've written this very unique story, and I'm like, okay, it's a very unique story. How many people are going to be interested in that? And if you sell a book to every single one of them, how many is that? And a lot of times it's just not very many. So you don't want to really stand out that much, You really, as RJ over here said, you want to fit in, really. But you want to me, the biggest thing is know your reader, know your audience. Who is it you're trying to appeal to? And then do things that cause them to notice you, whoever they are. You obviously want to have a good product. You have to have a great book. You have to have a great cover. You have to have good editing. You want a good story. So clearly you want all that, and everybody in this room knows that, I'm sure. But then the question is, how do you reach those people who might want to read your book? And I think that is not an easy thing to do, really. And anybody who tells you it is easy, I think, is lying to you, frankly, or trying to sell you something. I don't know. But So I think, ask if you have other friends who write in the genre. They can help you, making sure that you have your metadata correct. Try to put your books in the right places so that when people are looking for your kind of book, they can find you. It does you no good to put your animal cozy in serial killer thriller categories, okay? Even if somebody buys your book in that category, they're going to hate it. They're going to give you tons of bad reviews. They're never going to read another book that you wrote because you didn't really write a serial killer thriller. So don't do that. So figure out what your book is, put it in the right place, and then try to reach those readers who want to read it. And then what you're trying to do is get those readers to love it. What you want to do is find them and have them come back again. And the way you do that is give them some good back matter, some reason to come back to you. And that's why marketing just one book is so hard. And I think probably if you were at the panel I did yesterday, you heard me say this. You have one book, they read it, they love it, they have nowhere to go. They want to read more from you, but there's nothing else. So that's why it's good to just, publish frequently in the beginning, or publish quite a few books, or just be patient. Publish this book and get another book written and then publish that book. So you have to have, something for them to do. You need inventory. I mean, who buys just one pair of shoes? Anybody in here have one pair of shoes? Yeah, no, right? So same thing. So write for readers, find your readers, write for those people, put your books in the right place, and have lots of things for them to read. That's really the answer. Sounds simple, but it's a lot easier. It's like, how do you diet? Eat less, move more, right?
Yeah. On that, I was also going to talk about categories. It absolutely drives me crazy to go onto the category where my book is properly placed, and to see like all kinds of crazy stuff in the bestseller, like above that is a book that readers are not going for that, but it's still the top in that category, and because they're trying to branch out into something that doesn't even describe what their book actually is. And I agree with what Diane said. I don't think it really does you very good. I know everybody's trying to like kind of put your irons in other fires so that you can have like multiple, and it's great to have multiple categories, but make sure that they kind of match what you're going for in your book overall. I would also say that during COVID, I was a little bit stuck in Australia for a really long time. It's the first time I've been back in a really long time, which was very sad. But it was the perfect opportunity for me to take a broad look at where I started and where I am now, and what am I not doing now that I did at the beginning that got me those readers in the first place. And so I went back and I took a hard look at, for me, one big change I made was I revamped the entire way I did my newsletter. And I started refocusing on bringing more people onto that again, that I was really like lackadaisical about that. And kind of how could I reach out to new readers and in an effective way and bring them on and get them going on my book. So my focus during that was to always finding new readers. Like while I'm also trying to keep happy my existing readers. So it's sort of like two things. You're always trying to find those people who have never read you before and bring them on, and then once you have them, to hold them there and to keep them reading your books. And so I revised everything I did with my newsletter, and I made a process where anybody who's new that comes on gets something new from me once a week for a month, then they turn over into my main newsletter, instead of kind of going backwards where somebody joins your newsletter and bam, they're on with everybody else and getting all of this stuff without really the chance of getting to know me, who I am, and who my books are. I kind of like started it as a step-by-step process, and it has really been great. And I'm very interactive with it as well. And I think that for me, I've seen a difference in book sales just from doing making that simple change. Okay, so the other question that was on the 20Books page that everyone wanted to know about was effective reader magnets. What are the most effective reader magnets that we can be using in our genre right now? So I'll go Dan, and then you, and then me. Okay.
Okay, so the reader magnet that I'm using now is one that I wrote specifically for this purpose. And at the time that I wrote the reader magnet, I had 3 active series. So I set out to craft a story that included the main character in each of my 3 series, so that I could use the same reader magnet for anybody who came into my worlds, and I could then funnel them into the series that I had going. So it took me a while to think up a story that I could write that would include all of those three main characters. They're all women, so that was helpful. One is the star of a traditional mystery series, which used to be called Cosy, and now Cosy is something different. I didn't have my Cosy series at the time. But my traditional mystery main character is Willa Carson, and then I had a thriller character named Jess Kimball, and then I have a thriller character named Kim Otto. And so I wrote a story that had all three of them in it. I set the story in the universe of the most successful of the three series at the time. And then I started giving this reader magnet away. I also listed it for sale everywhere, and I made sure that it was long enough to qualify for a BookBub featured deal, which means it had to be at least 160 pages, which it is. So I sell it for $3.99, and my books are wide. You know my philosophy, I'm sure you all know this already, is fish where the fish are. So I want my books to go out everywhere. And so you can now go online and buy this book, or you can join my mailing list and get it for free. It's also been on BookBub a couple of times. It's even made the USA Today list a couple of times on the strength of a BookBub giveaway. So it's been a very successful reader magnet for me, and it's been up there for, 5 years. And I'm probably not going to change it, because it still works to bring in new readers into my, like Cheryl was saying, to bring new readers into my series. And when they read the book, if they like Willa Carson, then they'll go on and read the Willa Carson books. If they like Jess Kimball, they'll go read those. And if they like Kim Otto, they'll go read those. Now, if I was going to do it now, I've got one or two other series, so I'd probably have to put all the characters in it. But that's what I did, and it works really well for me, and I can recommend it as a process.
All right. It's far more creative than what I do. It's a actually neat idea. For mine, I did...
I have to watch him. He steals all my ideas. I'm just kidding. It's the other way around, actually. I'm going to write a soccer story now.
Yeah.
So I have... I have two different magnets that I use. One of them is just the first in the series, and after... I didn't do that initially, but after about 3 years, and I had sold... The series was going really well. I decided, and it was my most successful one, I decided to use the first book in that series to give that one away. So if you're just starting out, that might not be the best idea. But I started a new series under a different pen name that was more, it's a different type of thriller, more historical thriller. And in that one, I had my main story, for the first book or whatever, and then I went back behind that and wrote a story, like a shorter story specifically about that I give away on BookFunnel, and I do advertising with that book on Facebook as a way to draw people in. And that it's pretty successful. I get a couple at least, I don't spend very much money on it every day. I think like maybe $3 a day, and I'll get between 2 to 3 new readers every day added to my list. And it's just a short little story that took, maybe 10 or 12,000 words, something like that, that I did, but kind of gives you a flavor for the main character. It's kind of just almost strictly a backstory about the character and, what kind of mischief this guy gets into all the time to kind of make the reader go, at least interest them in reading more about this character in this series. So that's what I use, and I use BookFunnel to give it away, which if you don't use that, I think it's a great way for you not to have to hassle with any other technical stuff for people. In the early days, we've all been doing this long enough that we would get people, how do I load this onto my Kindle or whatever, and just like, I want to claw my eyes out. Just like, no, I don't do that. So that's something, I don't know, it's a great tool. If you don't know about BookFunnel, or I think they're here, go see them and learn about it, but that's how I distribute it.
Well, I'm going to talk about BookFunnel too in a minute, because they are just the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like BookFunnel is great, and this is a basic thing for a lot of you that are advanced. But as you're publishing and you've got more than one book, make sure that there are links at the back of your book, at the very least, to your next books. And Books to Read is a great link to. I do by series, and then I'll put them in order, and then I do like no more than like a 2-sentence, just quick little thing, so that they're they've got something else to go to. So I end my story, and then I immediately say something like, thank you for, reading Black Diamond Death. I hope you enjoyed it. Book 2 is available now, and in book 2, Sloane continues her journey. And then I write a little bit about that, and then I'm like, and here's a sneak peek of chapter 1. Just bam, I want to give it to them right there, and I'm hoping that they will, if they liked it enough to they're still reading that, then hopefully they'll read the chapter, and then links right there. Go get it. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, we've all been saying, is book funnel. I run, for new readers that I'm trying to always be bringing in, I run Facebook ads directly to book funnel. What is so fantastic about that is that you can have your book at full price now everywhere. You don't have to discount it, and I can put them straight to book funnel and give them a free download of a book. Just very easy. Another thing, not to harp on COVID, because who wants to do that? But another thing that I did to kind of bring new readers in, but also as a reader magnet, is I really was kind of burnt out a little bit of writing my main character. I love her, and I would love to keep writing her forever, but I have so many things. I think the way it is with a lot of us is we have so many ideas for series that we want to do. Like, I have a whole bunch in my mind, but there's only one of me. So I'm like, how can I keep her going in a way that I'm still kind of in control of what she's doing with my OCD, and also move on to new things and find new readers that maybe would be more interested in one of my other ideas for a different series. And so I was talking about it with my editor, and I said, maybe like a co-author, but I don't know if I could handle that, because I still have to like read the story and line edit it. I got to be really involved. And she was like, well, I actually would like to get into writing books instead of just line editing for everyone. And she had edited every book in the series. So together we kind of came up with a spin-off of the series where we could come up with a concept, we can work on it together, and I'm still testing this out, so I'm not saying that this has made me a $1,000,000,000. We're only on book 2. But it was a great way for me to keep my readers who write me all the time and say, like, when is the next Sloane coming out? Keep them invested while moving over and starting fresh with something totally different that might bring in a brand new other audience that might like that character better.
I just wanted to kind of add on here a point that just hit me when they were talking. Seems obvious, maybe you know this already, I'll just say it very briefly. A really important thing is to make it very, very easy for people to buy your book. Do not send them through a bunch of hoops. Don't make them go here to see this or there to see that. If you just give them a one-click answer, you are way more likely to get people where you want them to go. I actually had a reader sent me a response to a newsletter one time, and she said, Diane, you lose so much money on me. She said, because I just want one click, and I want to be there, and I don't want to go to some website, and I don't want to go to some, Well, that is very awkward to do, but if you sell only on one retailer exclusively, it's very simple to do. So just give them, a straight shot from here to there. And in that same vein, one of the things I started doing probably 3 or 4 years ago that works really well is I put a link, a books to read link, in every single newsletter I send out for every single book I have. Now, people will tell you 50 reasons why you shouldn't do that. And I will tell you that every single newsletter I send out, people buy things from those links. So I just put them at the bottom. I make them look as nice as I can. But every time I send one out, I put all that in there, and every time somebody buys something. So make it easy for your readers to find you, to buy something, to do what you want them to do. If you're asking them for a survey, hit the reply button. Just tell them whatever you want them to do and make it one thing and make it very simple, and you'll get better response.
And this is a little bit moving on from the topic we were just talking about, but also when I think about my readers, what is really important to me is that they don't need to know what is going on in your entire personal life, and I don't think they should. But they love to like feel connected to me in any possible way. So I always start out with a like if I'm sending a newsletter or putting something on my Facebook page, it's something that I have done. Like maybe I was at the beach yesterday and I'm showing a picture of that or something. I'm always trying to find ways to like connect that also makes it fun. Like and so last year something that I started doing was I started putting like different kind of fun puzzles or trivia questions at the bottom of my newsletter or on my Facebook page. And I have had more emails about how they cannot wait to get it now because of that. And it's like Where's Waldo type stuff, like, can you find the hidden book in this photo? You know, like, and I cannot believe how many people they respond, and that goes to my assistant, and then we like pick a winner. You know, we draw a name of somebody. I've done like recipes. Like on my last newsletter, I was like, what's everybody making for Thanksgiving? If you can give me a really cool recipe that I have not tried, that sounds, you know, exciting, I'll try that. Just anything. They love to like interact and feel like they just want to mean something in your life and in your world, and feeling a part of you will keep them for life. Okay, anybody, you know, any other comments before I open it up to everybody?
Find out what they want to know.
All right, what do you guys want to know? Okay, if you'll just kind of line up and ask your questions, we're going to try to spend the rest of the time doing that.
This is for Diane. You mentioned a few times the change in cozies over the time. They're now traditional mysteries. Could you talk about that a little bit more?
Actually, I think I said it exactly backwards. Traditional mysteries, what we call now traditional mysteries used to be called cozies. You know, Agatha Christie wrote domestic mystery, and that was called cozies. That's how the Agatha was born, you know, Malice Domestic and all that. They were mysteries set in a domestic setting where everybody, all the, you know, it wasn't like a stranger serial killer or a, you know, guy on a bus shoots up a bunch of people or whatever. It was always somebody from the neighborhood, you know, and they had a motive and they knew each other, and it was a puzzle, and you had to figure out who the killer was. That kind of traditional Agatha Christie sort of mystery was called a cozy back then. And what we write now that we call cozies are much lighter. They're much more, they're funnier. They're less serious. A lot of times they don't even have murders in them, which to me, you know, cozies were always murder mysteries. So to write a cozy and it's not a murder is kind of, you know, but a lot of people like that. It's a very popular genre, and it sells a lot. So some people don't want to be, they consider a murder dark, even if the story's kind of lighthearted. So they don't want to read something that's dark like that, but they like the puzzle part of it. So cozies now are, you know, a lot of times the thing that's selling the best in cozies, I'm told, are paranormal now, which, you know, back in the Agatha Christie day would never even have occurred to her, you know. So there's been a definite change, and this is a fish where the readers are thing, where the fish are. You know, people who go to the cozy groups and cozy categories now on the retailers, they're not looking for necessarily, you know, the dark stuff. They like what they would consider dark. In the Agatha Christie mode, what they want is the lighthearted, comedic, you know, some slapstick comedy sometimes. Usually the protagonist, there's some romance involved or some relationships involved, and that was anathema, you know, back in the day. I mean, you never put sex on the page. You never put, you know, not even kissing usually, maybe a hug or something, you know, and that's just not the case anymore. So I think the genre has kind of morphed and has changed, and so if you write cozies now, you know, you're not writing the same thing as what I wrote when I wrote my Willa Carson series years ago.
This is also for Diane. So you mentioned that you wrote your magnet with all 3 characters, one from each series. How did you, what point of view did you do that from?
I chose to write the story in the universe of the most successful series. So I wrote it from the point of view of the character from the most successful series. So she was the point of view character, and she interacted with the other 2 characters in the story.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you'd like to have one, you can just go into my website and get a free copy. Yeah, you definitely do not have to pay the $3.99. And then you can really unsubscribe. It won't hurt my feelings. And you'll get to see how Book Funnel works, too.
Yeah.
It's Ernie. How are you this morning?
Trent Grimm, The Independent. So,
That is fantastic.
so I want to know where you guys draw, like, some sources of inspiration for your main characters for these kind of stories, whether it's a series or a standalone. That make sense?
Take that. I'll just say something.
Should I answer in my English accent for you?
Not bad. Not bad.
I used to live in Ipswich a long time ago. Okay, so I think for me, my source of inspiration, I look at a lot of people that I know. For example, in the my series that's more traditional murder mystery, Cal Murphy is actually a conglomeration of 2 of my friends, and I've told them this, so I can say it and it won't be anything. But one's name's Cal Powell, and the other one's Brian Murphy. They're both reporters, and one of them was a dogged reporter, and the other one was like comedic relief. Also a very good writer, but more the kind of lighter side of my character. So I kind of blend, like, I don't know. When I look at people, I'm always, what are they doing? What's interesting about them? What would be interesting in a character that I'd want to read about? I don't, and especially in the genre where you have detectives and everything, I didn't want to do another detective struggling with alcohol, and whatever. I mean, like, there's like 1,000 of them. And I also didn't want to name my character Jack, which, we won't talk about that. But, it's kind of popular.
Oh,
so,
really?
yeah, everybody.
What's wrong with Jack?
Nothing's wrong with Jack, Jack Reacher, but 7,500 Jacks when you look for this. Anyway. But yeah, I try to come up with something unique and different about different people that I know, and I draw in a kind of a conglomeration of different characters. So.
And for me, along with where Diane says, like, go where your readers are, she's always saying that in a lot of her sessions. I've lived in Australia for about 3 years now, and when I got over there and people kind of got to know what I do, a lot of people were like, well, would you ever think of like setting a book in Australia? And I was like, why haven't I thought of that? So I did it, and after, it was probably 9 months later, I had a novel and a novella, both set in the city that I'm living in now over there. And Kobo reached out to me and was like, your sales in Australia are 70% higher than they were like 6 months ago. What is going on? And I was like, really? Because I noticed like what I was selling, but I wasn't really paying attention to where it was. And so that's like an untapped thing. If you, especially for those of you who live in small towns, to write something in your town and then to write, like, let the newspaper know or whatever, people get so excited about that. Like, right, it's something because they're like, I walk on that Esplanade every day. People really, really love to connect with you also like that. Yeah, okay.
So I wanted to ask, obviously none of you have had a series that flopped, but have you had a series, let's say you're writing a series, and it's not doing as well as the other, maybe as you expected. Have you ended a series because it wasn't doing as well as your other ones? And how many books would you write before you made that decision? And so, yeah.
So I think I said this the first morning in the opening panel. I encourage you to take the long view. There's a lot of times when you release a book and it doesn't seem to do as well as you thought it would. So I'm going to tell you just a real quick little story about that. Years ago, I was hired to write a work for hire. It was a book of crime puzzles. And they came to me, I was like the number 3rd or 4th writer they asked because the others said they couldn't do it. And I sort of looked at it as a challenge, and I thought, okay, I'll try this. So I did it as a work for hire. I didn't get paid a lot of money for it. They estimated that it had a relatively small market, and my agent was a good agent at the time, so he negotiated as much money as they would pay me for, and they estimated that it would sell about 25,000 copies. So they paid me for that. And he said, but what if it does better? So they said, okay, we'll give you a bonus if it sells more than that. So we said, okay. So the original assignment was I was supposed to write 100 crime puzzles, and it was sort of a you solve it thing. Each was a little story, and the story was supposed to have, you know, a motive, a murder, you know, and a way to solve the crime. And then you were supposed to, you know, figure it out, sort of like a 1-minute mystery kind of thing. Well, I started doing this, and of course it was way harder than I thought. It took me forever. It caused me to nearly pull my hair out. I couldn't write 100 of them. I wrote like 62 or something, and they accepted that. Actually, when I turned it in, they wanted 40 more, and I said, forget it, just give it to me, I'll publish it myself. And they said, okay, we'll do the 60. So they published it. They paid me my money. Life goes on, zippity-doo-dah. I didn't really hear anything about it. It just sort of seemed like it sort of sat there. About 6 months later, they got a huge bulk order from some school system in the UK because they wanted to use it in their classes. So they bought 50,000 more. So I'm like, yay, get my bonus, you know. so then I get my bonus. So then life goes on, zippity-doo-dah, and I decide to, you know, do indie publishing, and I never even really thought about that little book again. And 2 years ago, the publisher contacted me and said they decided to resurrect this book. And they took it to the Frankfurt Book Fair, and they got interest. You know, that's book types are sort of like Hollywood types. So they got interest from Korea, and they decided that they would reissue this book. So now they've reissued it, and it's out there again. Now, I wrote this book probably, 10 years ago, maybe more. Well, more than that, like 15 years ago. And it just keeps, like, bouncing back to life. So just because it doesn't go somewhere early on or doesn't do what you think it's going to do right out of the gate, that doesn't mean that it won't be successful ultimately. But it also could mean that you shouldn't keep going. You know, you should move on to something else. But so I don't ever end anything, although I don't think I would ever write another book of crime puzzles. But I don't ever end anything, but I might just kind of move on to writing more books in a different series for a while. And I have definitely done that.
Yes, I'd say similar thing. I've had some series that, have kind of faded out a little bit, that weren't quite hitting the metrics that I wanted to. And for me, it's like if I'm not hitting, this is what my goals are, then I realize either the market's not there or I misread it or something, and I don't want to continue to waste my time with it. But I don't end it. Like, there might be time where I can come back. And, to Diane's point, like, I have a series that I wrote kind of before I really knew what I was doing, that there's the first book in that series did really well. I mean, it has, 500-600 reviews, back before you could, just hit, a star and move on. Like, it actually has 500 something reviews. But the series itself didn't really take off. And so I decided, I was like, well, I'll just kind of leave it or whatever. But recently I had a friend of mine who has told me that he wanted to get into writing, and I actually had hired the guy back when I was a journalist to work for me. And so we're working on restarting that series and kind of crafting it together, kind of what Cheryl was talking about, just to see what's going to happen with it. I'm putting new covers on it, refreshing it, and we're going to relaunch it now with maybe armed with a little more knowledge about what I know, about marketing and everything that might make the series go. I think it's readers liked it, but it just, reviewed it, but I just didn't get the numbers that I really wanted to. So anyway, I kind of agree with Diane on that. I don't necessarily like, that's the end and I'm never going to write this series again, but I'd kind of move in that direction. So.
Yeah, and I would say several years back, I was like, I want to write like a super cozy mystery, like really cozy. So I have been reading my friend Shay McLeod's books, and I was like, I can do this, and like not murder everybody in the book. I can write this. And so I wrote this series. I was so excited. Her name was Maisie Fezziwig. She was in her 70s. I'm like, I got this, all of it. The cover was the cutest cover I've ever seen. Loved it. And the reviews were like, this is not a cozy mystery. This is not cozy enough. You cannot do this and it be cozy. And I thought, I don't think that particular series in my mind was the exact lane that I thought, okay, I have a couple options here. I didn't want to take it down. I didn't want it to do, fade into nothing, which I don't give it a lot of focus now because it's now a standalone. I didn't make it into a series. But I said I could either go and I could make it more what a cozy should be, or I can change the cover and put it in mainstream mystery. And that's actually what I did. And now my editor, who is now kind of writing something else with me, is like, my favorite book of yours is that Maisie Fezziwig that you never turned into a series. What if we went back and made it the way it should be, slap that cover you had back on it, and give it another try? And I'd be willing to do that. So it's kind of like what we're all saying. You don't have to let something completely go, but you also have to pay attention to what your audience is telling you. And the core audience of people who really love and devour cozies were like, this is not good enough to be considered a cozy. And so I try to kind of gauge, what are they saying? How are these reviews coming out? This is the only time that's ever happened to me, honestly, with kind of what is working and what is not working, and I go with that. Okay, I think we are about out of time. 3 minutes. Okay. Is there one last burning question? Okay. Sorry.
Hi, fellow American that lived in Australia for 10 years, moved back just before COVID hit, but it's actually about geographic location that my question is about. When you set a book in a different location, obviously it would make sense that, small town USA, everybody in that town buys it, but then do you notice a corollary decrease in the purchases from the US or the UK or from Nepal?
No.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I should have probably put more thought into that because the first one I wrote in Australia was like the 8th book in my series, and I didn't even think about how is this going to be received by like everyone who's been reading the series up to now. I just was like, I'm writing it. I'm going to set it. I'm going to set it in Australia, and I just kind of made it. She traveled there for something and stumbled upon a murder, and I had to be super careful with that because you can't carry a gun, you can't carry any kind of weapon in Australia. So there was a lot of researching and asking friends over there what I could do and not do. I wanted to make it realistic, but honestly, I was like checking out the reviews when it came out, and there were people that said, I didn't really know if I was going to like this because it's set somewhere else. I'd never been there. I didn't know if taking this character somewhere else would appeal to me. But overall, at least for my demographic, is they are interested in the character and her solving murders, and not as much at the end of the day, it wasn't so much about where she was living or where she was visiting. It was about her herself, and that the mystery itself was still good enough.
And I think for that, you could think about Murder, She Wrote. Remember the woman, she lived in Cabot Cove, and we used to, or even now, Midsummer Murders. My husband and I say all the time, wherever we go to visit, we're not going there. You could end up dead there. But remember, in Midsummer Murders, they don't actually leave Midsummer. But for Cabot Cove, she killed off everybody there, and then she went places, She traveled and killed people. Yes, I'm telling you. I've actually done the Universal tour and seen the Cabot Cove little town, and I'm like, I think she killed off people that didn't even live here. I mean, it was just, So, if you have a successful long-running series and you put it in a small town, you just have to realize that you might run out of people to knock off, So then you have to figure out somewhere else to go.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. One of the things that you can do, I loved about, there's a couple of my my detective series, kind of a newspaper reporter, investigative reporter. When he would go different places, he would a lot of times would end up in small towns. And then when the people were, when I would go to, to market it or whatever, I could, using Facebook, I can really target those people. And I had a lot of success targeting, small town or Kentucky in this area. Like I had one that was set in Kentucky, and would go after those readers, and that was real successful too, but did not affect overall, anything else. It was just like an extra place to market and to focus on.
Yep. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. And if we haven't answered any question that you have, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much.